All right, so after getting wrecked by the Team California duo last week, check that out, by the way, if you missed it. Here's a link to the video. I decided to come back with some backup, and I came with my teammate Chris, who's a breakaway specialist. He's one of those guys who can just roll around at like 400 watts without much of a problem. That's definitely not in my wheelhouse. I'm much more of a sprinter, so I'm going to break down our strategy and talk about how we made our strengths complement each other. So first of all, if it comes down to a sprint, I'm worried most of Alex of Team California, this guy right in front of me here on the orange bike. So while my teammate's off the front, like right now, I'm staying behind Alex to make sure I can follow in his draft if he decides to attack across, or if we can hopefully force him to chase on the front, I can just sit behind him. Which, either way, it means he's doing more work than me, and that's a win, because I just want him tired before the sprint finish. So that was my plan. And meanwhile, Chris, who is my teammate, and he is much stronger at breakaway style efforts and sustained style efforts, he was in like 10 moves of the day, including this one. And the deal is, if he finds himself in a breakaway group with guys that could beat him, then he would just sit on and not contribute to the pace making, because he's not going to put himself in a situation where he's working in a breakaway and then he's just going to get out sprint at the end. So that move that my teammate was in up the road is just about to get caught, and I'm moving up because I'm already violating my first rule and I'm letting Alex get out of sight here. So I'm moving up to make sure that I have him covered, and also I'm just going to mark any counterattacks that might go, because right when a breakaway is caught, that's usually a good time for a counterattack. Sure enough, here goes Alex, and my timing couldn't have been better because I'm able just to jump on the back of this and get a really good draft as he attacks. And even though a gap opens up right here, it's still pretty easy for me to spend some energy and close it down, because I've been sitting in this group the whole time while my teammate's been off the front. So we get caught eventually because Alex doesn't want to tow me and I don't want to tow Alex. And this is about a half a lap later. Alex decides to go again, but this time I'm in much better position, and I'm just glued to his wheel. And even though he puts in this pretty wicked attack, I'm getting a good draft, and this is ideal because now he's spending energy and I'm spending just a little bit less energy, which means I'm going to be slightly fresher if it comes down to a field sprint. So just a little bit later in the race, my teammate on the right there in the pink just got reeled back in from one of his mini attacks, which forced my competition to chase, and I decided to put in this counterattack because I know Alex is getting a little bit tired. He had to chase my teammate a few times, and as long as I can get a separation like this, I'm putting him under pressure and forcing him to get to the front and chase, or rely on other people to do that, but that's always a risky game. And plus I draw out Nick with me, who is also really strong, so he's got to close this down like immediately. And once I notice that he's on Nick's wheel right here, then I just shut it down, because I'm not going to be doing work on the front if it's benefiting Alex and my main competition. So we get caught a few hundred meters later, and boom, my teammate Chris puts in a pretty gnarly counterattack, really well timed, and this time Alex does not respond, and this is great. The same thing happened to me, almost exact same spot too. The same thing happened to me at last week's Alviso, so it's nice to return the favor to the Team California boys and put the pressure on the peloton here, because as long as my teammate's off the front, I'm just going to sit in, not do any work on the front, and just get a really good draft, save my legs for the sprint. So then this really weird thing happens. Alex jumps hard to bridge across to my teammate who's still off the front. And before I have a chance to respond and try to come across to him on the outside here, everybody's yelling neutral because of some issue that happened behind. So I'm forced to let it go, which isn't the worst thing in the world because, well, A, he's got a pretty huge gap to close to my teammate. And B, once he gets there, my teammate Chris is not going to work with Alex, because Chris knows that Alex has a really massive sprint, and Chris is just going to sit on Alex's wheel, which means that Alex is going to have to go solo for about 19 kilometers here, which isn't going to happen. And even if it does, Chris won't be contributing to the pace, and he'll just attack on the final lap, probably take the win that way. The issue that neutralized the race got resolved, and then we all just sat up, and we waited until they lapped us, and we honored their about 30-second gap before we continued racing. So I spend the next 6 kilometers or so just sitting in, saving energy, and making sure that I'm following any bridge attempts as they fly off the front in pursuit of my teammate Chris and my main competition Alex, who are still up the road by a little bit here, but are getting reeled back in. And I spoke with my teammate after the race, and yeah, sure enough, he was just sitting on Alex, forcing Alex to do all the pace setting. And when Alex slowed down, Chris would counterattack, force Alex to chase. Once Alex caught on to Chris, Chris would sit up. And it's really annoying, but it's effective. And it's like I tell my teammates all the time, what you got to do to win in this sport is you just put yourself and your teammates in as many race-winning positions as possible. So here I am in a chase group, and if it comes back together for a field sprint, well, that's great for me because my legs are fresh. I've been resting, and that's a race-winning position. On the other hand, if this chase group is unsuccessful and the breakaway stays away, well, my teammate Chris up the road, he hasn't put himself in a position where he's going to get out-sprinted by Alex. He's put Alex on the front and forced him to do the pace setting and put him in this really uncomfortable position where he's got to make a decision between continuing to drive the pace in the breakaway, essentially towing my teammate to the finish where he can counter and win, or give up and let the field catch, but he's already devoted all this energy to the breakaway, so his chances from a field sprint in that situation aren't good either. So what my teammate and I basically have done have put ourselves in this win-win situation, taken advantage of our strengths, and isolated our competition. So as soon as they're caught, I just immediately attack. It's a little bit predictable, but I just want to make sure that Alex isn't going to be able to rest. I want it to stay fast, and I just want to keep Alex under pressure. So I check back right here. I noticed the field's all strung out single file and there's little gaps opening up. So I just go again, hoping that Alex is caught behind one of those gaps. But it's important to note that I'm kind of doing the same thing to my teammate Chris. I want to make sure that I don't drop Chris in the process here. So I take another peek right around here, and I do see that my teammate Chris is safely tucked in, resting, and catching his breath after being off the front for like half the race. So we noodle around for about a half a lap, and dang, my teammate Chris is a beast. He just goes again, and everyone just watches him. I sit on the front. I kind of set this false tempo, and look at the gap he opens up. So more good news for me. And again, race-winning positions here. So obviously Chris is putting himself in a race-winning position. He's capitalizing on his strength of breakaway racing, and this allows me to save my legs for the sprint and finish. I get to sit in, rest, and just save my legs for the last 250 meters or so. So Chuck here from Cycle Sports Specialized, and then Nick, who is the former collegiate UCSB rider, get to the front and absolutely drill it in order to bring my teammate Chris back, who was off the front, once again, all crouched, all arrow in the TT position, doing God knows how many watts. So I don't want to be third wheel coming into the last kilometer. That's a little bit too close to the front, especially because I'm behind these two guys who have been doing a ton of work in the last few kilometers. And although they're usually super strong, just at this point after doing so much work, I wouldn't depend on them to close anything here in the last 1,000 meters of the race. So instead, I let this gap open up. I let a few riders fill in, and sitting about 7th or 8th wheel is pretty much the ideal position. And I would prefer to be behind Alex at this point, but I see Jason here on my right, and Jason's a super powerful sprinter too, so I'm just as happy jumping on his wheel, and this is the ideal position right here. I really like this. With 750 meters to go, I'm in this position, 7th or 8th wheel, where I can respond. I'm not going to get surprised by any late race attack. If I'm sitting like 3rd, they might come flying past me. No, from this position, I can respond. And hey, look, my teammate's still up the road. You could just see him in the distance there take that corner. He still has like 7 or 8 seconds right here. So these guys on the front are motivated to chase. They're going to keep the pace really fast, and I'm going to be able to launch a sprint. Now we're coming in 400 meters to go. This is a nice strong tailwind, a little bit of a cross right to left here, and then as we make this left-hander, it becomes a tailwind. And this is the critical moment of the sprint right here, because Nick goes early and Jason lets that wheel drop, which is a big mistake. I go on the left, I get a little bit of draft. I sit once more here on Tim's wheel as Tim winds it up. I get a little bit more of a draft, catch my breath for just one more second, and then I stomp on it here inside of 150 meters to go. SJBC, he drops his chain, puts his hand up. And then my teammate Chris is caught right here with about 50 meters to go. I didn't think he was going to quite make it. Had to be sure we were going to get the W. Came around him. Man, the 1-2 punch. What an effort. Thanks, Chris. That was a ton of fun. Sorry, Team California. You'll have to try again next time. Oh, thanks for watching, guys. See you at the next one. Peace.